Welcome to Ad Age Remotely. Today is Wednesday, February 24th, and we will be talking with Andréa Mallard, CMO at Pinterest, who joined the company in 2018, and since then, Pinterest has been hitting all of its marks. Pinterest had its best growth in 2020, adding 100 million newcomers, now with 459 million active users. Also, ad revenue grew about 70% in 2020 over 2019. A more than healthy rise. And before we get started, for those of you watching at home, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them on our social channels, and we will try to get to them during our conversation, and also let us know where you are watching from. So with that said, welcome Andréa, and thank you for being with us today. We have so much to discuss.
Thank you so much. Thanks for including me.
Absolutely. Always glad to have you and Pinterest with us. So we have a lot to get into in so little time. And I was going to just start here. You're the CMO at Pinterest. And, you know, obviously, like I just said to introduce you, we've seen this sort of growth. 2020 was that sort of year. I don't know, it felt like you took some major steps. A part of that is just marketing and getting this platform out to the people and just showing it off. So I want to know what your role in that has been, how you envisioned it, and what you've done to be successful.
Sure. Well, the growth just comes down to me. No, I'm just kidding. Look, Pinterest has been building a platform for the last 10 years to bring everyone the inspiration to create all the life they love. And what's been amazing in the last few years, and certainly in 2020, the world needed inspiration more than ever. And so we were perfectly poised to really help people in a moment that they needed to reimagine their lives a little bit. And of course, I always say that Pinterest is the catalog of the world's best ideas. And when people needed new ideas and had to think differently, a lot of them, hundreds of millions of them, came to Pinterest to do it. And so part of my role, of course, as their first CMO was not just to establish, who we are as a brand and help establish that, but tell the story to three really important audiences. Obviously the first and the most important audience are our users, helping them navigate and use Pinterest better than they ever have before and understand all the different reasons that they can use it in their lives. But then also, obviously, our advertisers. I think what's so interesting about Pinterest, it's so unique, is that people come to Pinterest to get ideas for things to buy or try or be or do. And so brands very often, or almost always, are an enabler of those things. And so brands on Pinterest do not interrupt the experience, they enhance it. And so it's been really a pleasure to get to speak to advertisers and brands, like many on this call, to help them become more inspirational and better connect with our own audience and therefore have more business success. And then finally, the last audience is creators, the people who are creating that native content that's really fueling a lot of the engine of inspiration on the platform.
And so you also just being CMO and sort of having to advertise and things like that. I was thinking, you don't normally see like a Pinterest big television spot. It seems like it's a more targeted way of going about it. Like, what's your interest? Can we be on social media and show everything that we do here, from like crafts, DIY, cooking, interior decorating? Is that just the strategy you deploy, is just to sort of target?
Sure. So yes, we're very we do marketing. We do a lot of advertising, but we do it in a very hyper targeted way. But we are you'll see us becoming a little bit louder and prouder, certainly in 2021. We have a bigger story to tell, and certainly the world is open and receptive to hearing it. And so expect to hear a lot more from us in terms of brand storytelling.
They're giving you a bigger marketing budget this year. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. Well, look, I think we've earned the right to grow. And as a CMO, this is not my first CMO gig, and I always know you need to earn the right to grow and show the power of both, big picture storytelling and brand building, and then also the far more responsive direct response performance spend. So I try to be very whole-brained in my approach, art and science, and really show the company that we can accelerate the growth curve of Pinterest and fulfill our mission better if there's really broad awareness, really deep comprehension, and most importantly, maintaining that deep love that people have for the platform.
Yeah, and speaking of those sort of the loves for the platform, I was going to ask you personally what you're loving to do on the platform and what your Pinterest page looks like.
Well, and what's so amazing about Pinterest, and the reason I think people come to it, is you can discover things that you didn't think to search for, right? By definition, what you come to Pinterest to do is to say, I have an inkling of something I want to do in my life, whether it's a home renovation or a meal I want to make tonight, or a new look I'm searching for, or a new skill I want to build, but you don't have the answer yet. So you can't actually put it into a traditional search. And so to come to Pinterest, what's beautiful is you can really broaden your horizons about what might be possible for your life and really stand on the shoulder of giants. Like I said, there's these amazing creators on the platform who have all these incredible ideas that I would never come to on my own. So one real example for that is I was looking for, my backyard is a mess. I was looking for backyard gardening ideas, and I stumbled upon a creator who was really into backyard beekeeping. And then before I knew it, I was buying beehives and picking up bees from my local beekeeper, and I harvest my own honey. And then I learned how to make my own honey labels that I give out to my friends over the holidays with my own honey. And now I'm excited to teach other people how to do it. So for me, that's the perfect example of what is so magical about being on Pinterest is you get inspired and then you want to inspire others and teach them what you know. And look, this is not about me showing off my vacation or sitting on a yacht or telling you how great my life is. This is, we shared a passion. And that's for me such a far more deeper, exciting place to be for us as a brand and certainly for us as a product.
Yeah, no, beekeeping sounds intense. Was that a pandemic project?
This is pre-pandemic, but in the pandemic, I'll tell you what, this is what it helped me do in the pandemic. It was a great reminder to tether me back to earth, you know? So every day after a very stressful day at work, or I'm trying to homeschool 3 different kids, I have one in elementary school, one in middle school, one in high school. So that's a trifecta of difficulty. I would sit in the backyard and just admire these bees for a minute and calm my mind. And so not only was it a fun hobby that I enjoyed, but it became a really important oasis for myself after a really long day at work. And oasis, funnily enough, is how people often describe Pinterest, right? It's like my online oasis. It's my safe spot where I go to focus on myself and not focus on the rest of the world and what the rest of the world thinks of me. And for me, that's been indispensable through the pandemic.
Bees are very calming. Who knew?
They're amazing, and they're beautiful creatures. So I think, and obviously, given the ecosystem issues, we should all have a backyard beehive if you can have the space for it. I do recommend it.
All right, I'll think about that. And you also have this sort of, for you it's beekeeping, for everyone else it's everyone has a sort of niche interest, you know, mm-hmm. And these are what we've been you've been saying we have more people on the platform, they're looking at all the different trends, and now you have your Pinterest Predicts report from 2021, and you identified sort of the trends that you can see coming up. How did you come up with these? What's hot this year?
Well, here's what's so amazing is something I didn't appreciate is I used to advertise on Pinterest when I was the CMO of a large apparel company, and we advertised on Pinterest, but I didn't appreciate how much I could take advantage of the data. And here's what's powerful about the data on Pinterest, which is, again, people go to Pinterest to plan their future. And so they're making decisions about what they're going to do tomorrow, next week, and next month. And as a result, we have the earliest indications of what's going to happen, not what happened, but what's about to happen. And if you're an advertiser, that is absolute gold. That level of insight to know where your audience may be headed could not be more valuable. And so what we realized is because we had that, we could use some of that, disaggregated data to say, what are some of the things that we think are not huge yet, but are going to be massive at some point by the end of this year or throughout 2021. What's incredible is we did that in 2019, leading into 2020. And I think we can agree, 2020 was the most unpredictable year of all time. And yet 80% of what we predicted was going to be huge in 2020 came true, regardless of the pandemic. So this data is really robust. And what we've done here is you can see if you go to pinterestpredicts.com, you can go if you're an advertiser or brand or even just a user. A lot of users love this data. Creators love this data. Play around with what we are predicting is not massive yet on the platform, but is just about to spike. So you can take advantage of that organic swing up. And then also you can kind of know where things are headed across lots of use cases, lots of axes of culture. So I highly recommend it. We have a lot of advertisers now. I mean, literally hundreds of advertisers who, call us every week to say, give me the latest that I can use, the latest piece of predictive data that I can use in my next campaign or my next strategy for a business to see where my audience is headed.
Some of that must be proprietary for the most exclusive brands, I guess. You don't want to give trade secrets if you could be a close brand, or just share it with everyone.
No, I think we're actually quite open with it. Obviously, some brands with whom we have big partnerships might want to dive a little deeper into it. But in general, we try to be really, really generous Again, this is a prediction, and this is about, we want, like, look, it helps us as a bit, we want our advertisers to be successful. And the definition of success is actually helping our pinners take action in real life. We don't want to keep people online. That's not actually an inspired life to us. We want you to get an incredible idea for some aspect of the real world and then go in the real world and do it. So we actually want to give this predictive data to all possible companies, small, medium, large, who can help our pinners do that. And if they can use it to create more engaging, inspired, useful, relevant content, that's good for everybody. That's what we want. So we're happy to share it really deeply. We have an incredible data science team, an incredible insights team that is working around the clock to pull this out.
And Andréa, I'm going to pause to just give a few shout outs and reintroduce us to anyone who's joining. I'm Garrett Sloan, technology reporter at Ad Age, and I'm joined by Andréa Mallard, CMO of Pinterest. And shouting out to just a few people who are in the audience is Dave from Michigan, Danielle from Illinois, Christiane from Florida, Reynal from France, Cody from Kansas, Rebecca from Canada, Marie from Switzerland, Jordan from Minnesota, Ayman from Saudi Arabia, and Simone from Ohio. And if you have any questions at all for Andréa, please do chime in, because we will ask them. And hopefully I'll get to some of them myself. And we were just talking about trends and predicting sort of what's happening. And I could probably ask you all day if there's any new ones from, I don't know if there's any brands that stand out to you in like the last month. If you're, I know it's sometimes shy to talk about or to give names of brands, but are there any ones that have come up recently?
Yeah, so I can't give these names of brands because I didn't ask for permission directly, but certainly we have, you know, in the sector. So one of our trends was around sleep, and this idea that we're seeing this really interesting spike of people looking and searching and pinning things around how to make really healthy sleep environments. So this is not just redecorating my bedroom. This is actually thinking about sleep in the same way as you might think about nutrition or you might think about exercise. And so we have a lot of really interesting clients who are adjacent or near this space that are saying, wait a second, what's happening here with this mental shift about the importance of sleep and how you think about creating a truly healthy sleep environment and all the rituals around sleep that we could maybe offer some services around. We see some really amazing innovation happening around that because we are able to say to these brands, hey, you know, don't sleep on sleep, right? Sleep is a big deal. It's gonna become a much bigger deal going forward. How can you be ahead of that curve so you can take advantage? And also, again, help these pinners who are looking for ways to literally and figuratively deepen their own sleep practices. That's one example. And there's a lot of ways that could come to life depending on your industry. That's just one thing that I think is really fascinating. That's trending right now or about to trend on Pinterest.
Yeah, we see a lot, and that's a lot of advertisers in digital are definitely in the mattress, pillows, sleep sort of analysis. There's just so many advertisers in that spot. How, if you're an advertiser, what would you just say is like the way to do Pinterest right? You could give the trends. Once you have, what are you doing on Pinterest that's gonna?
Well, again, so if you're an advertiser and you're able to extract some of this interesting trend data, you know, I always say to people, go lateral, don't be literal. So yes, you know, you could interpret that sleep data and say, great, we should talk about our performance mattresses. But we know those kinds of companies have been around for a while. That's not the new part. The new part is a growing awareness of sleep as a critical vector of health. That's a little bit different than I want to sleep comfortably at night or look at my new technology or look how, you know, easily this mattress got delivered to my door. Those are important, but there's an added layer here. And what I always tell advertisers is, again, the goal on Pinterest is to inspire, and inspiration is about creating the urgency to act. And the way you do that, I believe, is by being as intellectually generous as you can. So don't advertise, inspire, teach people something new, show them something, how to do something for themselves, explain something perhaps they didn't understand before. And I think that's what makes Pinterest such an exciting medium for the modern advertiser or CMO, which is like, we don't want to advertise. That era is over. We want to help. And certainly in the pandemic, the brands that came out ahead were the ones that were trying to help in this moment in really big and small ways. You know, we saw a lot of brands that were very successful on our platform. McCormick is a good example of that. So this beautiful old spice company with all of these amazing products, but they realized these parents are trapped at home with their kids and they have to suddenly teach third grade. And how can we use some of our products to share like school lessons and crafts and things that are really fun to do that, yes, use our products, but are still great ideas. And so we saw those kinds of brands that started with this idea that I want to be generous, I want to be helpful, I want to be inspirational, rather than I want to advertise. When you had that mentality, those are the brands that do extremely well on Pinterest, and it feels good to them as well.
And they still do want to advertise. Like I started at the top, you grew about 70% in advertising revenue in 2020. Is that just pandemic brands? Are brands just looking to branch out to more digital platforms?
I think there's a few things, like certainly, obviously, in general, across the world, people were spending more time online. But I think we also had, our ad business grew across the board. It wasn't like one sector grew above the other. It just the entire tide rose. And that's because, again, I think there was this moment of realization that, hey, advertisers who perhaps had overlooked Pinterest before were now looking for some alternatives, places to advertise. And so they could say, hey, this is a really interesting platform that maybe I didn't quite understand. And gee, it's working really, really well. And then also, of course, we just had so much more engagement, so not only did we have, hundreds of millions more people or 100 million more people coming onto the platform, but those people were doing more on Pinterest across more use cases than ever before. So if previously, let's say you came to Pinterest and you really just came here for, home renovation and hair ideas, in the pandemic, you were suddenly coming for beauty, you were coming for education, you were coming for gardening, you were coming for, food, preparing meals, what it might be. Like the use case breadth just expanded pretty dramatically. And so that gave so many more advertisers an opportunity to inspire and be helpful in those moments.
And this really isn't the technical aspect of this is with the changes to like sort of platforms. I was going to ask about how Apple, Google, all these platforms are sort of changing how you can exist on their platforms because of how they change their privacy settings and the sort of data you can get, which is a really ad tech type of issue. But part of it is when Apple changes its privacy changes, they're going to be, asking apps like Pinterest to say, hey, can we share data with the user and want the user to consent? I was wondering if that comes up in your role as CMO, is like giving a value proposition to users once these kind of changes come. Are you making that sort of case to users about privacy and why they should be sort of in your platform?
Sure. Yeah. Well, look, this is something the entire industry is thinking about. So of course, so am I. So are all the CMOs with whom I speak on a regular basis who advertise across the internet. So first and foremost, Pinterest has always built pretty amazing controls to keep Pinterest safe. And we're very clear about how information gets shared, period. So we don't use facial detection when we use AR try-on, for instance. We don't use skin tone ranges for targeting. We enable Pinners to easily opt out of personalized advertising. All of those things exist. And we've also always taken very industry-first pioneering stances against, misinformation, like anti-vaccination or election misinformation. And by the way, this wasn't just in the last few months. This has been true for years and years. And so for us, what's unique, I think, about our platform is we have a lot of intent signals inherent in the platform already. In other words, people are coming there to do something in the next few months. And so we kind of have that just inherent to the experience. And the number one request we get from Pinners, the number one request is, I want to be able to buy the things I find on Pinterest, So we're really focused on making sure we make that as easy as possible right on the platform, because that has always been the number one request, which is why we're investing so heavily in shopping, so that Pinners can do it all right on Pinterest, soup to nuts. They don't need to go elsewhere.
Yeah, that's a good point. So it really does fit into everything, just the whole health of the digital ecosystem and why people are going to certain platforms and why some other platforms sort of get a bad rap, and Pinterest has never really taken a bad rap for much. Not that you would deserve it, it's just you go there for beekeeping. But what about if you, it sounds like it might even be helpful, just that sort of consciousness about the internet. Pinterest could be a place that more advertisers are saying we want to go to because you have this contextual atmosphere. We know what people are doing. We can be part of it.
Yeah, and look, we're not working at cross purposes with advertisers. Again, these are wonderful other platforms in many cases. But if you're going there, I'm going to a lot of these other places to connect with my friends or to catch up with my family or to share what I'm wearing today, for instance. I'm not there to shop. I'm not there, or I'm there to debate politics. I'm there for a very specific reason. And advertising in those contexts can feel quite intrusive and kind of inappropriate. And it's there to distract you from what you're otherwise there to do. I think what's so unique and what is probably somewhat underappreciated is that on Pinterest, people are there to discover new things and take action on them. And that often means buying them. And so there is not a cross purpose. There is not something where ads have to be tolerated. In fact, what we hear from Pinners time and time again is, I really value these. 80% of the content on Pinterest, remember, comes from brands to begin with. So this is actually a very beautiful symbiotic relationship where we can absolutely do the right thing for Pinners by ensuring the ads are extremely relevant, extremely high quality, extremely inspirational, and are trying to help them do what they were otherwise there to do. So that's a very, very unique commercial intent that you just do not find anywhere else, period.
And next week, we're going to the Pinterest Presents, which is your first advertiser summit of any sort like this. What is this?
Yes, so I'm excited to share. Yeah, this is our first ever ad summit. It's called Global Ad Summit. So we are going to be hosting this incredible virtual experience for the US, the UK, France, Germany, Canada, and Australia. And what we want to do is give folks who already advertise on Pinterest, and perhaps those who don't but are very curious about it, a really immersive look at what you can get out of this platform. And of course, an exclusive look at our latest shopping products, our latest ad products, all of our insights, and teach you how you can use those tomorrow in your job. So it's exactly 1 week from today. It's on March 3rd. If you haven't signed up, just go to pinterestpresents.com. And I highly recommend it. We have an incredible lineup of speakers, some of whom I can tell you about and some of whom are a big secret. But they are all there to share their thought leadership, their insight, and then again, really actionable things about what you can do to grow your business on Pinterest. So I'm really thrilled about this event. Yeah,
these kind of events we see pop up, and it's the sort of the time of year for it to have for digital platforms or media platforms doing upfronts, new fronts, all sorts of things. You've never been quite a new front company, but now you must have something in the realm of content and ad products. What made you take that step now?
Well, again, just the demand has been so enormous, and we know that there's just so much interest and still a little bit of misunderstanding of what Pinterest is. And so we wanted to provide a forum when people are doing planning or rethinking where they're spending their ad dollars or rethinking how they can best break through, especially as the pandemic starts to ebb and off a little bit, with fingers crossed. We're going to be entering this really interesting golden age, I think, of roaring 20s, where people really want to get out and explore and do things in a more conscious, deliberate way. And so we wanted to make sure that every advertiser, since no one's really going to Cannes this year or people aren't able to meet up in person, that they could have this really immersive primer where they could get excited and really learn and start realizing like, wow, these are some really interesting formats and opportunities that I haven't taken advantage of before. And I'm seeing the ROI that brands like mine are having. I'd be crazy not to get involved. So we wanted to make that easy and make it fun and make it inspirational and make it feel like an event. So that's what we've done.
Oh, and here we have Roman on LinkedIn had a question. So we gotta give the audience what they want. It sounds a question about artificial intelligence, and if you're suggesting content to users, and AI algorithms, I guess, are always important on digital. So when you're suggesting content to users through your AI, and that's the platform servicing up the content that they're searching for, is there how can brands use that best to their advantage? Is it just search and have a good search strategy, or is there another way to get elevated?
Sure. I mean, there's lots of great strategies. Obviously, a good search strategy is part of it. But also remember, what we're also serving you if you're a Pinterest user is based on a taste graph. So, we start to learn the things. It goes far beyond just your demography or what we think you might like because you're of a certain household income. If we see that someone is into mid-century modern furniture, we can start to suggest things that might sit just adjacent left or right of those tastes in other use cases. So it's really helping people find what they love based on what they genuinely love, their own sense of taste, and not just a demography of who they are. So really savvy advertisers are able to take that and say, wow, these people who might be interested in this kind of Japan aesthetic, let's say, in their homes, that might suggest these other things about them in terms of how they might eat or the kind of car they might buy, these other things that could be related to the taste graph. So there's a lot of ways that if you reach out, obviously, to anyone at Pinterest, anyone on our ad sales team, anyone on our creative services team, and certainly anyone on our data insights team, I always recommend a deep dive and say, start by asking, what do we know about your audience that you're going after, what they're going to be interested in tomorrow, and how you can play a role in helping to expand their minds or expand their taste into areas where you have something really valuable to offer. So we have a lot there, and we have a great team, and it's really worth a reach out to that team to get that firsthand bespoke information for your brand.
And I wanted to, of course, ask, this year has been important for just racial justice and equity and diversity, and Pinterest has taken a role in that as well, in trying to elevate Black-owned businesses and just putting that front and center. Can you just tell me a little more about that and how has it worked? You're sort of giving a platform to a lot of new businesses you may not have before, and is that showing results?
It is showing results. So look, we want to make it as easy as possible for anyone to find these amazing up and coming businesses. And a lot of these are smaller, medium-sized businesses from very diverse or Black creators. And we want to give them a platform. So as we are moving into this explosion of creators on our platform, we have a group of people who manage creators to get them up and going. And we have a goal of 50% URM creators on the platform who are going to get extra management from Pinterest. We also do things like, this month is Black History Month. We have something that we call Black Gold, which is a way for us to connect with Black creators and teach them all the best practices and celebrate, Black excellence and Black businesses on our platform and how to take maximum advantage of our platform. If you go on to any of our surfaces, you can see that we highlight Black-owned businesses, we highlight Black-owned creators, we celebrate them. We make it extremely easy for you to find the next Black creators to follow. So for us, we really want to elevate, ensure that we have a very diverse set of ideas, because again, you cannot get inspired if you're just stuck in sort of an algorithmic bubble and you can't get outside it. The whole point of our platform is to open your mind to what's out there. And so making sure that we have a diversity of businesses and we are actively supporting them is a key tactic to make sure that we can get to that goal.
And we also, speaking of just expanding the platform, I have another question in from LinkedIn Tonette, who asked they would love to hear an updated stat on how many male pinners there are. I know they've worked very strategically on gaining a larger male audience and have been successful.
Yes, so what's amazing is that we've just shared that we've hit 460 million monthly active users in Q4 2020. And it was Gen Z, men, and millennials were the audience segments that drove the majority of that new user growth, right? So, and what's interesting is the fastest growing audience segment is actually within Gen Z, and that includes a huge proportion of men. So, as what's so inspiring to me is to see, obviously, when you have so many people on your platform, I think there was always a feeling that, there was a lot of women on Pinterest, which there are, and we're proud of that. They control 85% of the spend, so we're proud of that as well. But it's amazing to see how many men are now coming or have always been on Pinterest, but are increasingly growing for, in particular, the search behavior is a little bit different, not wildly different, but there's a lot of, building and DIY and upgrading kitchens and upgrading their look. Men's fashion streetwear is up, 6 times what it was just last year. Healthy skincare is up almost 10 times among men. There's a lot of categories that are just exploding in growth for men who also, by the way, like women, are looking for kind of a positive corner of the internet where they can get these ideas and it becomes about them creating their own life that they love. So we see just this explosion in Gen Z, millennials, and men, and we don't anticipate that's going to change.
Well, on that note, Andréa, I really do thank you again for coming on with us. We filled up all our time, and really thanks for the fresh insights. We have a lot to think about now, and I also want to thank our Ad Age team who helped make the production possible, which is Alfred Mascaroni, Anna Sakula, Max Sternlicht, and Elise Lefring for making this live stream happen. Be sure to keep an eye on adage.com/remotely for more live videos. And thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll see you again, Andréa. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.